All right, you guys, welcome back to another Friday segment. We have a name, you guys. We have a name. We're calling it the CEO download. Perfect, right?
All right,
CEO
let's go.
download. So, Friday segment, CEO download. This is where we're going to share some insights, some ideas, some inspiration, all that good stuff for the week. And Brian, I'm going to get you to introduce the topic for this week, and let's get into it.
Yes, the theme of the week today is who are we being? And we sat down over breakfast and discussed it this morning, and we're reflecting on the week, right? So, and this is what we're encouraging you as CEOs and leaders within your businesses is pick a day of the week. Usually it's Friday for us, Friday afternoon. I always say, like, if you want a successful week, what does it look like by Friday between noon and 4 p.m.? So at some end point where you kind of reflect on how the week went, what worked, what didn't work, and all that stuff. And and kind of that's how we generate the theme of the week. So the theme of the week is who are we being?
And also, like, who are we being, but also, how are we getting back to being ourselves? Is like the secondary piece of this, right? And we had some conversations with clients, we had some conversations between us that really brought through that sort of sub theme as well of just getting back to being ourselves.
Yeah, it's funny too. I was at my son's hockey banquet last night, and there was a guest, keynote speaker, a commentator for, I believe, a sports desk, interviewed numerous pro athletes and championships, and covered a lot of high profile pro events and stuff. And he did talk about who you are being.
Hmm.
And that who you are being and the effort you put in and the relationships you're keeping
Mhm.
is what's going to line you up for the future. He's talking to a room full of young boys, right?
Yeah.
Young boys and men from 14 to 18. And it's interesting how that also came up again last night at the banquet. And we've had a number of different things happen for us in the last couple of weeks that's reminded us of who we need to be leaders in our domain and what we're up to, right? And to be able to recognize, be self-aware enough and to be recognize when you've fallen out of that groove, right? Because it's very
Yeah.
normal. We're also humans and we're going through big changes and upgrades and things that are happening as we try to align and match the capacity of what we want our business to grow into.
Mhm.
Um, so it's a muscle that we're strengthening, right? It's not a muscle
Yeah.
that we're building.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And this could be something that's personal, like are like how are you getting back to yourself? Like this could be about you doing, the things that you love, you taking up a hobby that maybe you did as a kid. I know I went back to figure skating a few years ago after years of being off skates, right? And so there's like the personal side of it of you being you and not only being the mom, the dad, the wife, the husband, the parent, the sister, the whatever, but you being yourself and doing the things that are important to you. And then there's the you and getting back to being yourself in the business space. And in the last few weeks, there's been a really big shift for us in the business side where we've actually now closed down the Time Freedom Club, which is the group coaching program I've been running for the last 5 years. So that was a big shift. And if I'm being fully, transparent on this one, it kind of felt like losing a bit of an identity, right? This is something that's been my main program, income stream, all that stuff for 5 years. And all of a sudden, it wasn't there. And so there's been this ongoing dialogue for us about, okay, well, who are we now? Right. And
yeah,
what's the focus now? And we've been going back and forth with this with our coach as well to kind of figure things out and redo the messaging, which for anybody who is listening to this, you guys want to revisit your messaging and your avatar and all that stuff. I would say every 3 months to make sure it's still on point. And without rambling on about this too much, I just know that, you know, this is actually a full circle sort of moment for me where I have wanted to really focus on the leadership piece and helping people step into their CEO roles for a long time. And every time I tried to shift, it didn't quite happen. This time it's happening. And to just have that realization come back to me to go, Jody, like the thing that you do is help develop people. And it turns out that even though Brian, you have only been in the business with me about 6 or 7 months now, that's actually what you do too. And this comes from both of our backgrounds in fitness and the roles that we had in each of our different fitness clubs. And just this moment of clarity of going, that of course that's what we do, is develop people and help them step into their role as leaders. And so on the theme of us going back to being ourselves, that feels so me.
Yeah, what is interesting enough, like I am looking up the in March, towards the end of March or partway through March, in our little tracker here on the
Yeah.
wall, I actually wrote down, who are we being now?
Yeah.
And because we had realized partway through the first quarter that, oh, all these new different things that are happening, which we didn't necessarily plan for, we
Mm-hmm.
actually did ask for
Mm-hmm.
when we made our wishes in December and January of what we wanted to do next.
Yeah.
It's actually showing up. And we're like, oh, so this is what it's going to look like. And
Right.
then and that's when we really started to focus on BTC, right?
Yeah.
And also like, oh, so who do we need to be next now in this
Yeah.
situation, right? So
Yeah.
I guess to share with everyone sort of watching this video is or listening is take a moment to bring it to like back to ground level. Take a moment and think about your week, like just the week that's passed. Like it's
Yeah.
probably still fresh, right? So what happened this week? Like what did you accomplish? What did you not accomplish if you didn't complete with things or whatever? Just think about what happened this week, both personal and professional, right? And
Yeah.
the differences. And explore what worked and what didn't work, right? And then ask yourself, take a moment to go, in that particular situation where it wasn't working, or when I was in this sort of lower space, who was I being there?
Yeah.
And when all of a sudden I turned on and I was doing my thing and I was in this great flow, great zone, who was I being at that point?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Even if
Mm-hmm.
you can just put a name to it or an idea or an archetype to it, right? And just keep practicing trying that on, right?
Yeah.
Because as humans, we can actually do this. As energetic beings, we can actually do this with practice quite willingly, right?
Yeah.
I found when I got really good at, got used to doing my podcasts, for example, or just getting online and doing a video like this, like I used to just like pump myself up, jump up and down, and play like music, and I used to do this big like psych up thing because I just felt like I needed to like wake myself up or something, and I realized
Yeah.
I actually don't even really need that, you know. And my process became like a 2 minute, maybe a minute process where I put something on, some sound frequency on. I jumped up on the trampoline a little bit, and I would vocalize and
Mm.
just get my instrument, my voice going. And then I would sit down and just relax and go, here we go, right? And just like allow it to it was very different from how I was behaving before,
Yeah.
thinking I had to get really psyched up like a sporting event or something.
It's really interesting because the who are we being and the getting back to ourselves almost feel like the who are we being is where we are being the person that we want to be that maybe we aren't necessarily already, right? That being is thinking, okay, if I was already at the goal that I'm trying to hit, whether that's, we're going with a revenue goal because that's the easiest. If I was already making 5 grand a month, if I was already making 8 grand, 100K for the year a month, how would I be acting? What would I be doing? How would I be showing up? Right. So there's that part, which is like the being, and you call it like the 3.0 self and all that stuff. So that almost feels like the future. Like, how am I being to make sure that I'm showing up as if, right? And I'm
Yeah.
showing up as I'm already there. And the other side of like back to being yourself is almost the part where we look backwards, right? And we go, okay, wait, like, when was I the happiest? When was I the most fulfilled? When was I doing the best work in my business, right? What was I doing? And usually what we find over there is that we're out of alignment with something, whether it's like you have let go of your habits. Maybe, most people in our community are doing some kind of practice, whether it's meditation or affirmations or writing or chanting, or, there's a good chunk of people inside of our community who are doing things like that. Maybe you're someone who walks every day, or maybe it's something even further back. Like I said, maybe you had an activity that you loved to do when you were a kid. And it's like, how are we getting back to being ourselves? And typically it's because somehow, some reason, something has taken us away from, doing something that fulfills us, that makes us happy, that makes us grounded, that makes us, ready to take on the rest of the day or the world or the business or whatever it is. So it's sort of interesting to think of those two pieces, and one's like future and one's kind of the past.
Yeah, I think we need to remember that although it sometimes feels like we're goofing off, to sometimes remove ourselves from the work we're doing, especially if we're
Yeah.
kind of like we feel like we're spinning our wheels in the mud and stuff, like remove ourselves from the work we are doing, maybe
Yeah.
re-engage with our family members, re-engage with nature, or go off someplace where you just kind of like disconnect from your screen and stuff like that. It's actually important because you're allowing that other part of your brain that you were working with to regenerate itself,
Yeah.
right? There's moments where you and I are in meetings and we're like, at the end of the meeting, we still haven't resolved like the thing we're trying to solve, like the problem
Yeah.
we're trying to sort through.
Yeah.
And then we separate and go to like go off and do some other activity apart from each other.
Yeah.
And when we're far enough away for long enough, we end up texting each other from wherever we are and saying, "I got it. I figured it out," right?
Yeah.
And sometimes we need that. We need to
Yeah.
just stop sort of like spinning on it
Yeah.
and just remove ourselves for a second. And something happens when we're not together as a unit in the same room. There's something that happens when we become two individuals again
Yeah.
that actually feeds back into, and
Yeah.
it's where we're finding ourselves
Yeah.
in the journey again,
Yeah.
right?
And
Yeah,
sorry, go ahead. I was
and
gonna say,
yeah,
sorry.
sorry. And I feel that, we can lose ourselves both in our businesses, we can lose ourselves in family life, we can the roles that we play,
Yeah.
mother, father, all these roles that we play in our lives. And in the end of the day, there's us too, and we have to remember to
Yeah.
reconnect with that version. That's what our retreats are. A lot of our retreats are for.
Yeah.
There's usually some time for introspection in the retreats because we need time with ourselves to
Yeah.
reconnect with this person, with this soul, and then you have a frame of reference to
Yeah.
come out into the world with, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And like what I was gonna say was that, for us, it's being together and being apart. But if it's just you and your business, this applies as well, right? It's being together with the business and all the thinking and the deciding and the strategy and the whatever, and then the taking yourself out and going for the walk or doing the thing. So, this has actually happened to us 3 times in the last less than 24 hours. So
Yeah.
last night you went to hockey banquet. I was home. We had a conversation before you left. And then while you were gone, I needed a bit of time to not do anything with work because I was just over it. And then later in the evening, like 7 or 8 o'clock, I started, tinkering around and starting to have some thoughts. And then all of a sudden, this epiphany about bringing back the leadership stuff and the personal or the business development stuff and all of that kind of came to me. So that happened. And then this morning we went for a walk. We had a call at 10 o'clock that was important for us. And we needed to just like get outside first, right? So we walked this morning and then we went out for lunch. So we just got out of the house, right? Went and did something and we talked about what we were going to do here when we were out for lunch in a
Yeah.
different space that wasn't our house. So it's these little micro things. They're normal things that you could do in your day. But I think one thing I've learned so much, since you and I have been together is just the change of environment piece. And it was really unexpected and stuff that we didn't do on purpose. But originally, we were spending, even before we got together as friends, when we were meeting at a coffee shop, there started to be this different energy of being in a different space, right?
Yeah.
And that also started kind of the co-working thing too, right? And going to the coffee shop together gave us just a different place to be in. And so the environment has been such an important part of all the creativity and the changes and the recalibrating and all of that for us. And it's happened over and over again. And it could be as simple as any of those things, going for a walk, going for lunch. Everyone knows we go to the beach all the time. Just like some small change that's not you sitting at your computer all day long.
Yeah, it also reconnects you with the dream. It reconnects you with the vision
Yeah.
you have of your business, right? And
Yes.
and that's a huge part that we've found is we keep saying is important to have in the forefront of what you're up to, just to remind you that this is your guiding light. This is the direction you're going in. So you
Yeah.
don't revert back to an old vision or old way of being, an old series of habits that
Yeah.
lead you back to the same place that you started, right?
Yeah.
So I found that it also takes, because I was doing this mental reprogramming exercise in the last week or so. It also takes energy. So you got to allow yourself
Yeah.
some space and grace to regenerate, to
Yeah.
sleep, to take care of yourself, to work out, whatever. Um, because it is kind of exhausting sometimes, working on things that are just old patterns, right? And
Yeah.
repatterning something new. So that's an important thing to remember, is to allow yourself the space to continue building the muscle like you would in the gym, and then
Yeah.
allowing time to recover as you get, so you can get stronger, and then coming back again, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
decide what dose you need to move it forward, but also decide, how much rest time you need, from that, in a good space. Because a good sign that you've kind of exhausted yourself, or you're fading, or you're reverting back to your old self, is like you get massively, I find, I get massively frustrated, but you start to like when it gets really dark, there's doubt, there's lack of confidence, there's like you start searching for job postings. Like
Yeah.
sometimes, if you can rant to a buddy sometimes about your frustrations to get it all out, but then it
Yeah.
really kind of, you want to cycle back to, okay, all right, let's get back to this, put my CEO hat back on
Yeah.
and get back to it. So,
Yeah. And this is where that intentionality comes in, right? There has to be this intentional um way to move forward. And there has to be a recognition of what does the next level look like and what am I doing now to, make that happen. And some of those things could also include things like I'm taking the afternoon off on Fridays and I'm not working. Like that is a sign that you're saying to the world, I'm the CEO. I can
yeah,
decide. I don't work Friday afternoon,
yeah,
right? So there's just the whole purpose of all of it is to, for me, it's like bring in the old stuff that's good that you want to bring forward, that feels like you, that makes you happy, that fulfills you, that grounds you, that, you know, makes you want to do more. And also intentionally thinking about the future. And if you're already where you want to be, what are you doing? And fusing those things together. And, a really powerful thing might be, I am going to go skating on a Friday afternoon because it's who I am. It's something I love. That's from my past, but it's also a message to the world saying, I'm good. I don't need to work Friday afternoon. I'm going to go do something that I love. Right. So, this is how we intentionally bring these pieces together to act as if and to really step into that CEO role and also get the personal, pleasure, happiness out of it at the same time.
Yeah, it's about like you've heard that, I don't, this is one of the things that Greg, my retreat co-host is
Yeah.
saying too, is like live your dream now, right?
Mm.
It's also one of my podcast episodes with another guest I've had is like, live your dream now.
Yeah.
And that's part of it. Like in these little micro levels, you can still do that even
Yeah.
before all the revenue pours in or whatever, right? So where do we at this point, like where do we go from here, right? So if you're listening to this and taking it in and hopefully resonating with some of what we're saying, where do we go from here? So, three main things I could share with regards to this, and Joe, you could share as well, whatever
Yeah.
comes up next is one first is remember that you're the CEO of your company. And there's a massive level of powerful leadership that comes along with that. Whether you're leading yourself as a solo entrepreneur,
Yeah.
or if you have teammates or a team to lead as well, you're also leading in your domain in your expertise, right? So remember
Yeah.
that you're the CEO of your company. Um, the second thing is, what would the CEO, he or she, tell you right now about the week ahead? So let's use a small time frame.
Yeah.
So if you want another successful week, what would the highest level of the CEO leader version of you tell you or advise you on or give you a tip on or give you insights on to be successful in the week ahead, right? Take your journal out and sort of write some things down. Here's the funny thing. It doesn't come from here. It's something that you have to allow come through you, right? This can be done either through writing or for me, something that happens through recording my voice,
Hmm.
right? And the 3.0 version of me comes in and gives me some advice. And what's cool, I could listen to the playback, right?
Yeah.
The third thing is, how do you create the feeling? So,
Hmm.
one thing I heard from one of my mentors is one of the things that's in the way of us achieving our goal isn't even what we're doing, it's belief, right? Belief that we're actually capable of doing it,
Yeah.
right? Conviction, right? So conviction is my word of the week, but like if there's a word that you need to access or a feeling you need to access to activate this part of you, the CEO in you, what does the feeling feel like?
Yeah.
Like for me, conviction feels like if you join me right now for the next 40 days, I will create massive momentum
Yeah.
towards the goal that you have in the next 90. So are you in or not? Right? Like
Yeah.
it's just the way I speak is different when I focus on the feeling of conviction,
Yeah.
right?
Great one.
And it's backing it up with action, right? Um, what is your word and how does that feel to you in a way that creates enough sort of impact in your results coming into
Yeah.
the next like short period, like a week? It's like a little experiment to try it out, right?
Yeah. I love that. And I love that word. And I think a lot of people might take that word for next week because it really resonates, and it can really help when we're getting on calls and when we're talking to our people and feeling that conviction of knowing that you can provide this transformation, whatever you guys do individually for your clients, right? So I love that word. And I think the last tip that I will leave with you guys is to actually think about what your weekly perfect schedule would look like. And, rather than plugging things in when it works for other people or when your clients say they can come or whatever, take some time. Look at what your week looks like. Look at when you're doing what. Think about, energetically what you have the energy to do at different times of the day think about if you want to be taking time off, right? Maybe you take Wednesday afternoons off, right? In the middle of the week because you want a little break or you want to spend time with your kids or your grandkids or your partner or whatever it is. Like, look at your calendar and decide, right? And I will challenge you guys or encourage you guys to not have a 9 to 3 or 9 to 5 schedule. Like, look at it and really go, when do I do my best work? What times do I actually want to work, be working? What times do I actually want to be spending with my friends, family, or myself? Am I going to book myself a massage next week? Am I going to start to take Friday afternoons off, right? Like, think about what you really want and think about what the CEO who's already at the goal that you have would be doing, and then start to map your stuff out and plug it in based on that rather than just letting the schedule kind of get carried away.
Yeah. Yeah. Before
Big
you know
one.
it, the week it's over, and then you're like, what did I do?
Yeah. Yeah. So let's get the schedule mapped out of what you want the working schedule to be. And then, we won't get into this today, but then the next part is prioritizing what goes where and making sure that we're, getting the right things done and all that stuff. So let's start with the calendar though, right? Let's start with what we want it to look like.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So this is it. Like, I mean, what we're gonna do is we're gonna regenerate this weekend, but sometimes when we're together, we're always talking about work and doing things. But um looking
I'd
forward to
love to
seeing,
know,
yeah,
sorry, I'd love to know actually what is one thing, and I'd love for everyone to pop it below. What's one thing that you guys want to get back to or you want to try for the first time? Like a hobby or something you loved. Like, I want to know what's one personal thing people are going to do going forward. I'd love to hear that.
awesome. Let's do it.
All right. Have a great weekend, you guys.
See you guys in the next session.